This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And good morning, Kentucky. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host, Bob Scott, joined as always by my good friend and co-pilot on this ride, Mr. Tom Fallbush. It is a cold and snowy Friday, December the 12th, but we are going to be warming things up here in just a few moments. In fact, I just want to invite you, if you'd like to join in the discussion on the program, you can do so by texting us at 502-571-0970. Again, that text line number is 502-571-0970. Our guest this morning is a familiar face to many of you. He is former Navy SEAL, a current Kentucky State Senator and from District 7, Mr. Aaron Reed. Welcome to the program, Aaron. So glad to have you. It's been, we have been, in fact, Aaron's been right in the middle of some of the biggest discussions happening in Frankfurt. And today we're going to talk and walk through several national and international issues that are now impacting Kentucky more than ever. There is a ton of ground that we are going to be covering, and we're going to start with the fireworks that's now coming straight out of the Senate committee meeting that happened earlier this week. In fact, if you haven't heard, Aaron was at that meeting. He was in the background in which Kentucky State Representative Sarah Stalker has literally made international headlines defining, or I should say defending, DEI. Well, again, Senator Reed was looking on in the background. Please play that clip.
I'm going to be honest. I don't feel good about being white every day for a lot of reasons, because it's a point of privilege that I get to move through the world in a way that so many of my other colleagues and friends and family members of the community don't get the privilege to do. And I'm just a female, but just a woman, just a white woman. If I was a white man, I would be functioning from a point of even greater privilege.
All right, Senator Reed, there you have Representative Stalker giving her opinion of DEI. And like I say, it's gone viral. I know we talked before we went on the air today that you've seen it everywhere. What was your thoughts at that moment that she was saying that? Because I didn't realize you were in that particular.
Sitting right behind her. Yeah, he was sitting right behind her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He was sitting right behind her. I saw the hat. That's how I knew it was Aaron.
That's right.
I was there. You know, she wasn't the only one. There were several other state reps there on the Democrat side that could not help themselves. They had to just say their piece, you know, and it just shows what they're really thinking. It's unreal.
Yeah.
You know, I sat there as a former Navy SEAL who fought alongside every race, every background, and I thought, this ain't America that I fought for. You know, I don't believe God made any mistake when he created me as a white man, just like he didn't make a mistake when he created someone Black, Hispanic, or Asian. You know, DEI has gone from promoting fairness to fueling the division, and people in Kentucky are starting to wake up to that.
Yeah, well said. Well said. It's like whiteness is the original sin. It's like somehow it's the mark of Cain, or these, you know, according to the left. So.
Yeah, it really is, and again, phenomenal insights, Aaron. In fact, when we come back, we're going to go global with Venezuela oil tankers and the latest comments from Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Machado and President Trump on what Maduro is doing right now. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Our special guest today is Kentucky State Senator Aaron Reed, and we're shifting to international events with very, very real repercussions here at home. We're going to start with powerful comments from Venezuelan opposition leader and recent Nobel Prize winner Maria Corina Machado, who says her country has already been invaded by Maduro and the thugs who are backing him. Play clip one, please.
Some people talk about invasion in Venezuela, the threat of an invasion in Venezuela, and I answered, Venezuela has been already invaded. We have the Russian agents, we have the Iranian agents, we have terrorist groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, operating freely in accordance with the regime. We have the Colombian guerrilla, the drug cartels that have taken over 60% of our populations, and not only involved in drug trafficking, but in human trafficking, in networks of prostitution. So this has turned Venezuela into the criminal hub of the Americas. And what sustained the regime is a very powerful and funded, strongly funded repression system. Where does that funds come from? Well, from drug trafficking, from the black market of oil, from arms trafficking, for human trafficking. We need to cut those flows. And once it happens and repression is weakened, it's over, because that's the only thing the regime has left, violence and terror. So we ask the international community to cut those sources, because the other regimes that support Maduro and the criminal structure are very active and had turned Venezuela into the safe haven for their operations into the rest of Latin America.
What a brave woman.
And I also have a clip that I'd like to share from President Trump as he weighed in on the seizure of the Venezuelan oil tanker and really specifically talked about Maduro's criminal actions. Please play clip 2.
And with Venezuela, now that we've seized this tanker, is the campaign against Venezuela still just about drugs, or is it now also about oil?
Well, it's about a lot of things, but one of the things it's about is the fact that they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from their prisons, from gangs, from drug dealers, and from mental institutions, probably proportionately more than anybody else. They came in from many countries. We're getting them out. We had 11,888 murderers come into our country. Many of them are from Venezuela. We had thousands of Tren de Aragua, the gang, come in from, which they say is the most violent gang. I don't know. MS-13 is pretty bad, but Tren de Aragua, they say, is the most violent gang. That comes from the prisons of Venezuela. It came out of the prisons of Venezuela. So it has to do with a lot of things. They've treated us badly, and I guess now we're not treating them so good.
And there you have President Trump explaining a little bit about his actions. There's a lot more that's happening behind the scenes. We know, Aaron, and that's one of the things that I am glad that you could be on here today. Talk a little bit about having been a Navy SEAL and seen, I think you told me, well over 300 conflicts during your service. And I know, I almost feel like we're seeing, a Monroe Doctrine, if you will, being implemented by President Trump, where he's going back and saying, sorry, communists, sorry, narco-terrorists, sorry, thugs, you cannot come in to our neck of the woods, the Southern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere, depending on how you look at it. And I'm not going to stand for this anymore. And guess what? I'm going to do something about it. Do you think? I mean, I guess you know it better than I do. Do you think we are looking at actually doing a physical invasion of Venezuela with all of the assets that have been brought to bear down in that area, or is this just something that Trump is trying to send a message to send Maduro packing? And I have heard, by the way, that he has already made plans and is getting ready to exit stage left. What are your thoughts?
Well, President Trump obviously isn't afraid to flex on these guys, or anybody for that matter. He's proven that when he took out the nuclear sites in Iran. So, he doesn't fear a fight. He actually, kind of goes along with what President Reagan, with peace through strength. That's kind of how I roll. I don't want to, look weak and make false claims that we're going to come over there and take care of business. When President Trump speaks, they're going to listen, and I don't think they're not going to mess around by trying to call his bluff. I tell you that.
Yeah, no. Tom, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it looks like we're basically doing a quarantine of Venezuela. So I think you described two scenarios there, Bob. Are we going to go to war, or are we just trying to pressure them? I think the tactic now is pressure and try to starve the regime, because the brave dissident leader there, whoever she was, she basically spelled it out. She's asking for the world to kind of shut down the funding of this regime, and so I would suspect you're going to see some more seizing of vessels here. You're probably going to see a few more oil tankers seized, and it's basically going to be like a Cuban blockade. It's like the blockade of Cuba in 1962. We're going to blockade Venezuela, and Aaron, I would think that it sounds like we're sending a message to our adversaries, Russia, China, Iran. Get out of our hemisphere, and the whole hemispheric defense, doctrine that's starting to develop under the Trump administration. It's like that's fine. We're and you're a veteran of the GWOT, right? The Global War on Terror, and so it's one of these things where you want to see us be strong, but at the same time we don't want to start another war, because Americans are just exhausted, and the MAGA movement is definitely anti-war and anti-intervention. Same time, maybe this is wise to come home and focus on our own hemisphere and do this, and maybe achieve our goals without a war. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, President Trump was pretty clear about Maduro's criminal network. We should take those very seriously. Regimes like, Maduro's aren't just bad governments, they're criminal enterprises. They work like cartels, like, they're traffickers and hostile foreign actors. Man, as a SEAL, we never underestimated any enemy just because they were, disorganized or corrupt. In fact, those are the most dangerous.
Yeah.
President Trump understood that deterrence only works when it's backed by strength and clarity, and absolutely not with wishful thinking. So.
Yeah, no, well said. And so, and it seems like militarily, though, it would be a challenge. I mean, Venezuela it's a jungle, and so I mean, if we were to put boots on the ground, it would be like Vietnam or something. You're going into a pretty densely forested country, and so I think, I don't know if we're ready to do that necessarily, but do you think we can put enough pressure on the regime? Will it just fold, and maybe we have some inside help, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that taking down that tanker, I think, was a good step to basically standing firm on the sanctions that they've implemented. Mm-hmm. That's a big kick to the wallet.
Yeah, I think it's now about $100 to $200 million kick to the wallet. I was doing some research on that. There's a lot of money in just one tanker full of oil, like that. I guess my question to you, as far as next steps are concerned, as far as taking down Maduro's criminal network, how seriously, and obviously Trump is taking these threats seriously, what can we do, and what do you think, from your perspective as somebody that's been in the fight, would be that next step?
Is standing firm, honestly. Keeping, we've got all these boats coming across the water, headed our way, and I find it ironic that a lot of the folks whose families have been affected by things like fentanyl and things of that nature, drugs in these boats, and they're getting offended now when we take them out. How many years have we been watching the war on drugs?
Right.
I think pretty much my whole life, and honestly, until now, I don't believe we've ever actually had a war on drugs. I feel like it's been flowing freely over the borders and through our waterways until President Trump has finally taken a stand. And, I think by him maintaining this new business that we're doing here, it's not business as usual. It's the new, we're actually standing up and saying no more. So I think by him maintaining that, and if Maduro wants to take it to the next level by continuing to mess around, he's going to find out.
There we go. Yeah, FAFO. Yeah, and we only have about a few minutes left. But I think Trump's also said that he's going to extend this to the cartels, and he's willing to take this on the ground, and so which I think the American public are going to be very satisfied with, because we know these cartels are basically terrorist organizations and they're killing our people. They're killing Kentuckians. How many fentanyl overdoses have we had in Kentucky? And so, I mean, it is time to take it to these cartels, and it's time to drop a SEAL team down in Oaxaca and knock out, Carlos, whoever he is running that cartel. And we'll love to get your thoughts on that. We'll be right back here on Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to the Tom and Bob Show here on Kentucky's Voice. Our guest today is Kentucky State Senator Aaron Reed. He is going to be with us for the full hour. And if you'd like to join in the discussion, contribute to the discussion, you can text us at 502-571-0970. Again, that text line number is 502-571-0970. We always love to hear from you. We're going to turn a little bit to a moment that has stirred a lot of discussion in the country, and rightfully so. U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville, who is actually stepping down and is going to run for governor of that state, he was speaking about what just happened in Hoover, Alabama, and how it connects to concerns about expanding radical I guess you could say a Muslim ideology in the United States. Please play clip 3.
What in the hell happened in Alabama, and why did it take folks in Alabama to stand up and say this is not going to happen on our watch, and it's certainly not going to happen in our town, sir?
Well, thank you, Steve. People have to wake up, and it's fortunate that we've got some strong people in Hoover, Alabama that did just that. They stepped up. This is a prime example, Steve, of why people need to be very concerned about people from other countries running for election in city councils, city commissions, zoning commissions, because they are going to control our communities in our states, and it's going to ramp up, and it's going to intermingle with everything and with all 50 states in our great country. So I'm proud of the people of Hoover. I'm proud of the people that went to the meetings. The zoning meeting says enough's enough. We're not building a building here, an education building that preaches the Quran and Sharia law. We're not going to do it because they preach to hate America and hate our country and hate the people that live in the community. So I'm very proud of them.
Well, what did it finally take to get average citizens? Because you've seen what's happened in Minneapolis, Biden and Obama and these administrations. And quite frankly, we haven't dealt with it tough enough. I mean, Omar, to me, should be denaturalized, put in prison here, and then shipped back to Somalia. You see what's happening there. And this scandal's huge. It's now in Maine. You see Mondami is sitting there mocking us to our face, doing videos now showing illegal aliens, how they combat the ICE agents to combat the removal. What was it about the folks in Hoover, Alabama, that what is it about them? They finally said, we're not going to do this anymore. We don't care because they're coming to, and they attack them. When they stand up in those meetings, they get attacked afterwards as being haters and xenophobes and nativists and Christian nationalists. What was it about them, and what was it about this quote unquote education center that finally hit their tripwire?
Yeah, well, a lot of them, and I've talked to people in the Hoover area that actually watch shows like yours and other shows across the country. They don't watch mainstream media because you don't get the real picture of what's going on. But they've seen this small school, this Islamic school in their community, and they've seen it pick up speed and starting to grow. And what happened is they wanted to enlarge this school to start accepting more people in, even people that weren't Islamic, to start indoctrinating them in the things that they want them to believe. And so they said, enough's enough. And again, we have to talk about it. We have to stand up and fight for what we believe in. These people, now there's some people come over from some of these countries that want to come here for a better life, and they're going to assimilate and go by the things that we believe in, go by our Constitution. The Muslim group, Steve, this is World War III, okay? And it's going to be on our soil. And it's coming so fast, within 5 or 10 years, it is going to be way out of control. We have a prime example of this, Europe. Europe is gone. And they will have to fight in the streets to get it back. And that's coming. And so we do not want that to happen here. And the people of Alabama, the people of Hoover saw this, and they want to stop it before it really gets started. Don't let the fire start and get out of control. And I'm so proud of what they did.
There we go.
Yeah, I was just saying those are pretty bold comments, Senator Reed, that Senator Tuberville made. And what's your reactions as far as what happened in Hoover and what's happening across the country?
Yeah, my first reaction was that he said it out loud. A lot of Americans are quietly thinking still, and they need to start saying it as well. You know, this isn't about attacking a religion or people. It's about recognizing when ideology clashes with our Constitution. You know, as a SEAL, we were trained to identify threats early, not after they've already taken root. And ignoring hard conversations doesn't make problems just go away. It actually lets them grow. So hats off to Senator Tommy.
Yeah, and do you think Americans are becoming more open and willing to talk really openly, just like he just did, about ideological threats? Even when those conversations seem uncomfortable?
Absolutely. You know, it's overdue. You know, for too long, people have been told that asking questions equals hatred. That's insane. It's not true. You know, a free society depends on honest debate. You know, Americans are waking up to the fact that silence doesn't equal tolerance. It equals surrender. You know, you can be respectful and still be firm about, you know, defending the values that hold this country together.
So, what do you think Kentucky has a similar, similar vulnerabilities to this stuff? You know, there are Muslim populations here in this state, here in Louisville, for example, and it's a delicate thing because these are people that have, a lot of them are American citizens. They have rights, the freedom of religion. At the same time, we got to be realistic about what Islam is and the ideology behind it. Are there similar threats here?
Yeah. I mean, Kentucky is better positioned because we still have the value. We still value faith, family, and freedom in a community. You know, but we're not immune. No state is. You know, soft targets exist everywhere. That's why awareness matters. You know, we can't assume it won't happen here. You know, readiness and vigilance are part of leadership, and pretending that threats don't exist is not leadership. It's absolutely negligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like Alabama is doing something. I mean, the people are rising up there in Hoover, and they're doing some things to shut these mosques down or this school down. And so, yeah, I think, you know, I mean, what can we do? What is the leadership in the Frankfurt doing anything to address these issues, or is there any discussion about this, about the future? What would happen if we get one of these like cities they're building in Texas? You know, this Sharia city they're building down there. What happens if that pops up in Kentucky somewhere? So,
well, you can rest assured I'll be on the lookout. But states do play a critical role. Public safety starts locally, though. You know, state leaders need to support law enforcement. You know, strengthen information sharing, which has in the past been an issue, and ensure our laws are enforced, not ignored. There's so many on the books that we just kind of overlook. You know, we also need to protect free speech, which is, you know, always kind of in the balance there while we stay alert to the real threats. I mean, you can defend liberty and maintain security at the same time, but that balance is exactly what good government looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Yeah, really well said.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've had Representative Bill Wesley on the program, Senator, and in fact, recently, and he is in the process of bringing to the floor legislation that would essentially ban Sharia law in the state of Kentucky. And I'm going to make a little commentary myself. That is something, quite frankly, that I think is long overdue. I know there's been some talk about trying to do that federally, but oftentimes we see the federal government running well behind, what the state and local governments need to do and act upon. So I do want to encourage you and the other folks that are up there in our legislature that they will take a serious look at this, because I think it's absolutely imperative that right now, more than ever, that we delve into this and start doing some things. Because if you get down and really take a deeper look at Sharia law and understand what it's all about, it's not pretty. It's anything but pretty. And once it's implemented, if you live under that, it's awful. Anyway, great conversation, Senator. Coming up next, we pivot to something lighter, but still very meaningful. The White House Christmas party, President Trump's comments on gratitude, and how other nations are beginning to follow America's renewed leadership, plus a British conservative leader, the warning of his own. We'll be right back with more of Kentucky's Voice. Stay tuned.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, the Tom and Bob show. Our special guest today is State Senator Aaron Reed. And, we are going to be talking, as I promised, about the White House Christmas party and what British conservative leadership is doing. But before we get to that, Aaron, you just recently appeared at the new Turning Point chapter at Evangel World Prayer Center, their faith chapter. And I know you moved a lot of people there. Tom had talked about a little bit earlier, but could you share just a little bit about, you had a story that you shared that was very compelling that I don't think you've ever shared before on this program. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Well, it can be a long story, but I'll try to make it brief. But basically the idea was that, we are all faced with crossroads in life, times when, God presents a decision that we have to make. And, my decision was I was called up to my commanding officer's office, with the XO and the master chief there. And they asked me, hey, Aaron, we would like you to deploy early because we have a guy in this platoon that he needs more time, and I just got back from Iraq, and I met my daughter for the first time when she was 3 months old. So, being gone in a high up tempo in the global war on terror, I was, kind of wanting some time back home to prep before I went out again. And of course, when the commanding officer asks it, it's, yes, sir, I'll do my best. And so I was pulled out of the Alpha platoon and I went into Delta platoon. I deployed that to Iraq. I went through Fallujah, Phantom Fury 2, and that was quite a mission. But I survived that, come back, and when my old platoon came into town to swap out with us, that was the last time I'd seen most of those guys. Alpha platoon. If you've seen the movie Lone Survivor, I was in that platoon, and I was pulled out to deploy early. And had I not, volunteered or basically gone along with the commanding officer's wishes, the fellow that replaced me, his name was Matt Axelson. And, Matt, during the operation on that mountain, they found him killed, with the rest of the team, minus Marcus Luttrell. He was the lone survivor. He managed to evade forces and survive. But who knows? I basically use that story as a way to prove that, God has a plan for you, and sometimes you can see those trajectories as they go. And, he can use ordinary people to do extraordinary things. So that was kind of the gist of it, without getting too deep in the weeds and eating up all your time here. But I'm sure we'll have more time in the future to get more detailed.
Yeah, he definitely orders our steps. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, no, and Aaron, you have a ton of stories like that. I've heard some in other settings that you have shared. Real life stories. In fact, I've always said you need to write a book and and maybe do a movie or something, because those are real life things that happen that were literally life and death situations. And I like the fact that you said that God spared you. God got you through that.
So many times.
Yeah, amen.
I tried to make a list once because I was going to have a speech on just my my life and the things that God has saved me from. And I started making a list, and man, it's long. And I think I do things all the time. And I go to my phone and I write them in my little notes app, because I keep thinking of times like, man, remember that one time when that IED went off, or that roundabout pierced my ear, or that rock zipped off and almost hit the hood of my truck. It's just over and over again.
Goodness, right.
Yeah, no, amen. And in fact, I'd like to just merge over and lighten the mood just a wee bit. This is the Christmas season, and I do have a clip from the recent White House Christmas party. A lot of good things have happened. The media tries to spin it as being all negative. Of course, that's what they do. And I'm talking about the legacy media. That's why it's important that voices like Kentucky's voice is out there, because we like to set the record straight. But I do have a clip 4 from the Christmas party. Please play clip 4.
But during the season of joy and peace, we have so much to celebrate as a nation. Because 1 year ago, we really were. We were a country that was in serious trouble. There were those that say we were a country that was really not going to make it. And they were saying we were not going to make it. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. They're all saying it. Other leaders are saying it. The European nations are saying it. The European nations are reporting that your president might as well be the leader of the European nations also. They listen to us and they respect us like they've never respected us before. So we're going to work very hard. We get along with them. We want to get along with as many nations as we can. We've been ripped off by a lot of them for a lot of years. And frankly, a lot of the Democrats knew that better than some of the Republicans. But we've been ripped off and taken advantage of by friend and foe. And in many cases, friend was worse than foe, but not anymore.
And of course, that was President Trump once again being his usual plain-spoken self. I do have another clip I'm going to play real quick. It's a short one, but it's backs up what President Trump was just talking about. He's a British conservative leader sounding the alarm on why Britain and Senator Tuberville were talking about earlier, why Britain is in such horrible shape, and says that basically that they need to follow the direction of President Trump. Please play clip 5.
Watching Trump and the Americans, it has made me even more determined than ever to restore our unique country through a great repeal act when Labour falls at the next election. I don't particularly care if we're liked by the rest of the world. I care if we're respected, because right now, Britain is a joke, and it has been for some time. I want the British government to put the British people at the top of the agenda. Yeah! We should make no apologies for that. Learn from Trump. Let's be unapologetically patriotic. Slash tax across the board. Enforce the border. Deport those with no right to be here. Accept biological reality. Fight back against wokery. Bulldoze nonsensical foreign aid. Eradicate DEI. Deliver sensible infrastructure. Carpet bomb public sector waste. Brutally crack down on crime. And plenty more. Let's make Great Britain great again. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, from his lips to God's ears.
Been a great American.
Yeah, absolutely. Make Britain great again. Yeah, that they are having such a difficult time, and with of course we have an issue in this country with immigration, illegal immigration. At least we have folks that are coming in primarily from South America who have a traditionally a Judeo-Christian worldview, and so that's a one blessing we have in this hemisphere. Over there, their immigration is all Islamic. It's all very hostile to Western values, and we everybody just sees it. Anybody's got their eyes open, you just see the future conflict that's developing there, and it's they've really got to do something serious, because we need Europe as an ally. It's just, and especially that's our, we came from England, right? All of our values came from the Great Britain and that heritage there. So it just breaks your heart to see them go down this authoritarian path. But anyway, Aaron, any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm watching this clip thinking this fellow missed a good opportunity to come be an American.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
I think he's, that's great. Because I have been watching Europe and Britain just decay, like right before my eye, right before our eyes. And it's been so obvious. They're going to be flying a Muslim flag over their country. I mean, within the next couple of years, it looks.
That's right.
It's a shame.
It's just the police state they're living under now. I mean, they're locking up, I think it's 12,000 people they have locked up for social media posts that the government didn't like. 12,000 people. That's more than Russia is locking up people. And so so it's just this left-wing globalist authoritarian mindset of, we've got to have multiculturalism, or, and we're going to force it on you. And if you say anything bad about it, we'll lock you up. But it's un-American, obviously, but it seems like it ought to be un-British, because we get our heritage from them. So
agreed.
So anyway, let me say this about your story. I've listened to your great speech on Monday night at Turning Point USA Faith, and another reason to join the TP USA Faith chapter is you can see great speakers like Aaron, and so. What encouraged me about it is we're just so fortunate in this state to have people like you in our leadership in government, and so it's really a true American hero. And I'm not saying that to kind of flatter you. Just if you know anything about your story, you're just like, really, wow, that's very impressive. And so it's just really a treat to have you on the show, and also in leaders or in Frankfurt. So we appreciate your serving the country in many ways and serving Kentucky, and so.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Tom, I got to tell this story. I met with Aaron. I don't know if you remember that, Aaron. Myself and another individual back at Cracker Barrel several years ago. And we said to him, because we live in the same county, we said, Aaron, have you ever thought about running for political office? And if so, we think now would be a great time to run. And I'm not saying it's because of that meeting. I know because you said you had been thinking about it. But it wasn't too long after that you decided to jump in the fray. And we are blessed, as Tom said, to have someone like you that go out there like you did in the front lines in foreign nations and put yourself on the line. What are your thoughts about that?
After having served 22 plus years, it gets in your blood. Like I said before, my dad's always told me that America's free because good men serve. And that's always stuck with me. And I like to look, it reminds me of Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena poem. If you haven't read that, you should look it up.
Yeah, it's good.
Because, it's the kind of person that is drawn into the arena. My wife's the same way. She's a school board member, and she's in that arena. We like to joke that, she jokes about me. I'm the only one having fun. She's right there literally in the trenches, wading through the blood and the mud in the school board. And she got her work for her as well. So, I always say, God is a lamp into my feet and a light into my path. And this is where he's got me and my wife both in the middle of everything here. So,
well, I'll kick your coverage with Sarah as I did with my wonderful wife. And when we do come back, we're going to close out the show with a bit of humor, a little heat from conservative comedian Brad Stein, followed by Kentucky-based CNN commentator hearing his thoughts about what just happened over in Indiana. Stay tuned.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
I can't stand the crazy anymore. I can't keep up with the lunacy. I can't stand people that want to tear down my nation and its history and its foundation. Is it perfect? Of course not. But why is it still the place where more people want to immigrate to than anywhere else on earth? You want to know if your country's great? Do people want in or do they want out? And I don't hear about people digging tunnels, sneaking into North Korea. Anybody heard about that one yet? Huh? Anybody heard about that move? Do you know more sub-Saharan Africans have immigrated here on purpose than ever came in slave trip? How stupid do you think these people are? If they chose to come here, if they thought it was racist. How demeaning must you be? Progressives always screw it up. They're a cancer. Everything they touch dies. And I'm going to call it out while it's good. I'm going to laugh while it's legal.
And of course, that's conservative comedian Brad Stein calling it out, telling it like it is. It's always wonderful to hear someone, especially in the entertainment field, that's giving, and he's very popular too, I might add. Again, it's Brad Stein, for those of you who aren't aware of him. I'd like to switch gears just slightly to a topic that's really hitting our area very hard, one that I know Tom has been talking about quite a bit as well, and one that I am absolutely buying into. But we just had a situation that happened over in Indiana with a vote that was honestly fueled and led by Republican legislators in Indiana that halted the efforts of redistricting, sadly. But anyway, our own Scott Jennings from Kentucky really sums it up quite well. Please play clip 7.
Do you think Governor Pritzker should stand down on his efforts, given these Republicans stood up to Trump?
Absolutely not.
Us discussing this Indiana situation and to see a Democratic debating partner tonight cheer on Governor Pritzker and his continued redistricting, gerrymandering efforts just goes to show you that Republicans are rookies when it comes to redistricting. We are nowhere near as practiced or ruthless when it comes to redistricting as these Democrats. You get state after state after state where Republicans have virtually no representation in Congress at all. Illinois is already one of the most, if not the most, gerrymandered state in the nation. So make no mistake, gerrymandering is a Democratic skill set. Republicans are still pikers when it comes to this. But I got to tell you, what you heard tonight is what they're going to do. They're ruthless. Democrats have shut down the government. They've told the military to stop following orders. They're trying to redraw maps. This is the future with Democrats, a ruthless kind of politics, and Republicans better wake up to it.
Now, boy, he's on fire. You got to love Scott Jennings.
Yeah.
You know, again, speaking truth to a situation. And, you know, Tom, I'll bring you in first. I know we did get a text in that you'll want to share, but and certainly want to get to Senator Reid about this redistricting issue. We're really at a turning point, and Republicans, and I know you've pontificated a lot about this, but we need to wake up. You know, there's a clear agenda by the Democratic Party, and they're doing it. They've already done it.
Well, they've been
in
doing
several
it
other
for
states.
decades. Yeah, for decades. You know, all these Democratic states are already gerrymandered to the hilt. You have no Republican representation. And so the Republicans have to wake up and do this. You know, basically what we're talking about, folks, is taking a state like Kentucky and taking the one Democrat seat that's represented in Louisville, and then redistricting so that that seat is sort of divided up amongst other more Republican-friendly districts. So basically, you won't have that Democrat seat in the state. Well, you might say, well, that's unfair. That's unfair to people. Well, every Democrat state's doing this, and also all these Democrat states are counting a lot of illegal aliens in their population census. So their districts are overinflated with illegals, and so they're diluting the value of our vote by illegal aliens in their states. And so all these sanctuary states like California. So we absolutely have to do something as a party. We've got a 1 or 2 vote majority in the House of Representatives in the U.S. This is the midterms are coming up. Usually the party that wins the presidential election usually loses the midterms. We've got to do everything we can do to make sure we can maintain power, because we know what happens when the Democrats have power. They come after you. They come after you, your family, your life, your everything about who we are. You know, it's really, we're at an existential moment. We cannot lose elections anymore as Republicans and as conservatives. So anyway, that's my rant. Aaron, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's well said. And, as Tom said, Senator Reed, what are your thoughts about all of this? I mean, you're, again, in the heart of the battle. And, how disappointed were you, to see Republicans really stand against the wishes of President Trump and really, honestly, in my opinion, the best interests of the United States of America.
Well, man, it just emphasizes what the word rhino, the acronym rhino means, Republican in name only.
Exactly.
But, redistricting will determine who holds the power, plain and simple. If we don't fight for fair and representative maps, we'll end up with moral, immoral, radical policies that don't reflect our values.
Right.
The left knows that, which is why they scream about it every time. They're not the ones drawing the lines. These battles aren't about lines on a map. They're about the future of our country.
Right.
100%.
Exactly right. I've got a picture of all the Democrat senators I'm sorry. These were Democrat. That's a Freudian slip. These are Republican senators who voted against this redistricting bill in Indiana. I want to put this up. If this is one of your guys, because a lot of our signal reaches in Southern Indiana and in Jeffersonville and et cetera. So if this is one of your state senators, these are rhinos now. We should go after them and primary them. Trump's going to do it. The governor of Indiana, they're going to go after every one of these guys and gals because there's no reason this shouldn't have happened. And so primary all these folks. But yeah, rhinos, exactly what we're doing.
Tom, I'm stunned. I had no idea that it was that number of Republicans. I was thinking it was 3 or 4, but my goodness gracious,
21 of them. 21.
21.
Yeah.
That is absolute. And let me say this real quick. On the surface, and this is really how I feel most Republicans are, we want to play fair. We do, and on the surface, redistricting for the sole sake of winning that district to favor one party on the surface does not seem like a good idea initially, but until you take the deeper dive and you understand that this has been going on with the Democrats in blue states for a long time. This isn't something, and what's ridiculous is you see states that might have, like Massachusetts, that might have a 40% Republican representation there that have 0 representatives, that are getting elected because of the way the district lines have been drawn. So, this is a battle. The Democrats understand very clearly, very fully how to play that game, when it comes to the Electoral College. And that's the dangerous game that's being played right now. And sadly, I think it's imperative that we as a people, we as a state acquiesce to the situation of the reality of redoing the district lines. And let me ask you, Aaron, have you heard much talk about this, over there on the Capitol?
Well, yes and no. It's not a huge deal, but within my circle of friends and trust and colleagues, state representatives like Representative TJ Roberts, we've discussed it. He's got a really solid map that we've been kind of floating around.
I'll pull it up here. Actually, I've got it.
Basically turns Kentucky solid red.
Yeah. Mr. Producer, if you can pull this up. This is from TJ. TJ sent this map to
us. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. It takes Jefferson County and splits it up into
TJ.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, this could happen. This could happen. And listen, here's the deal. We could lose the House of Representatives by 1 seat, right? In the midterms. And if we didn't do this, then we should blame ourselves at the end of the day. So this could happen. And I thank you, Aaron, for being a supporter of this approach, because and like to what Bob was saying, Republicans have been bringing a knife to a gunfight for years, and so we want to play fair, but to play fair is actually fight with the same weapons here. They've been using gerrymandering in their favor forever, and we have 100%. Not. And so it's time to respond.
Yeah, and Tom, get that text message that came in.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah,
What
great.
we've been talking about today, but it's important. We love hearing from our listeners and viewers.
That's right. So the viewer says, irony is if we find a cult that's hurting young women or children, we send them to the police to eradicate it, and yet we let Islamic Sharia law happen in our own country. It's absolutely ridiculous. We should go into every one of the communities and arrest them if they're breaking our laws. And so, exactly, that's right. I mean, we need to recognize, so like Senator Reed was saying, we got to recognize threats and be aware of what's going on in our communities. And unfortunately, it's like a fifth column when it comes to Islamic radicalization. And yes, there are moderate Muslims, but they don't have the momentum and the strength and the power within their communities. It's the radicals that basically take over wherever they go. And so, but anyway, Aaron, we got a minute and a half left. Anything you want to add to anything we've talked about today on the show? Because we're just real thrilled to have you. And any issues you're putting forward in the next session?
I do have at least a final statement here.
Please.
Whether I was on the battlefield or now in the Senate, my calling has always been the same: to serve and to stand. In 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. That's what this country needs right now. Courage, conviction, and clarity. I believe God is raising up bold men and women across Kentucky and this nation to defend what's right. So let's lead with truth. Let's love this country, and let's never forget that freedom is a gift from God, and it's worth fighting for.
Amen, amen, and amen. That's a wrap up for today's edition of Kentucky's Voice. Obviously, a huge thank you to our guest, State Senator Aaron Reed, for spending the hour with us and bringing the kind of conviction our listeners do appreciate. And thank you, Tom, as always, for riding shotgun with me on this endeavor today. And to everyone across Kentucky, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. We'll be back Monday morning with more straight talk and real conversation. Until then, I'm Bob Scott. Have a great weekend. God bless you. Love you. And God bless the Commonwealth of Kentucky. See you next time.